to touch on. A ton of important news, injuries, and lineup changes. I'm Chris Spags, joined by my good pal, the birthday boy. A little day late, but give him a little belated birthday in the chat. Fast, Eddie Fair. How you doing, Eddie?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited. We were talking before we came on the air about one guy I'm a little stupid about or feeling stupid about. Maybe not as stupid as it seems. Talk about Pat Connaughton. And he's not incredibly chalky in our latest ownership update. I'm sure that'll change. But
Really?
tell me why I'm not an idiot for playing Pat Connaughton.
Well, they just were. He was starting to get some time, and you got some commentary out of Bud for him for a little bit that we're going to give him a little more rud. We want to give him a chance, see what he can do in our rotation, filling in some of these other roles, and sort of with the evolution of Brook Lopez that they changed around the minutes and exactly how they were running that second unit. And he's performed very well, and it isn't based on any particularly ridiculous shooting, and he's still obviously very cheap. And then you take Dante DiVincenzo out of there, and he's more expensive on FanDuel, but he's droppable. I do think the ceiling is a little more questionable, and there's a couple punts I think I like more on FanDuel, so more of a DraftKings play for me. He's $3,600 on DraftKings and gets a great matchup where he's guaranteed, I think now easily 20-24 minutes, even if things go well, and there's a real chance that this game blows out. Obviously, it's the largest line of the night, and so you expect to have some chance that they absolutely push the bullshit in, and then you end up with him playing out the fourth quarter. So no, I don't think that's crazy at all. I like Connaughton quite a bit. Got a double B or a BA in my rankings, which I'll be posting the finals of in a second, just making the last changes. And you mentioned that he reminded you a lot of yesterday, where you had ended up with.
Not enough Juancho, but Juancho was popping in my projections, and I was like, "Don't be an idiot, don't play Juancho."
Not enough.
So
Juancho,
I admitted
yeah.
quite a bit.
Yeah,
and ended up.
Yeah, yesterday's slate obviously turned into a complete and total wreck. You had a literally historically one of the last couple worst games of the last 5 years for the Warriors. That game was a massive blowout. Second game was a massive blowout, but still had most of the winning players there. Actually, most of the better lineups contained mostly guys from that second game, including Juancho, who was one of the only guys you wanted yesterday who didn't get there on the back of ridiculous steals and blocks, where you got 6 stocks out of Paul Millsap. So instead of him getting 40 fantasy points, he gets 55 or 60 or anything like that. Juancho had, I think, a steal, but put up 25 and 9 or something, and was in a similar situation where it was picking up the spot start, incredibly good matchup against a very bad defensive team, especially bad on the wings when they had Taurean Prince out, that increased just how bad they were going to be on that peripheral defense. So very similar to the situation with Connaughton, who won't start, but otherwise ends up being a really significant case where he's going to start, same as Juancho, or Juancho was going to start, but Juancho is going to be in the blowout. Connaughton has some guaranteed minutes and is going to be in the event of a blowout. And, these Bulls wings are just historically anemic on defense. Anytime you get out there against Zach LaVine and Jabari Parker, etc., that they're running out there, you feel pretty good about it. So I would reverse course of your error, I suppose, yesterday with Juancho, and feel free to stick with however much Connaughton your unit is throwing at you. Like, I like playing Evan Turner when possible instead. Evan Turner's been really good, and the matchup for him is fairly good here to exceptional. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how the defense on this Timberwolves team starts to turn around when you bring in Bob Cove and a couple other guys who hopefully can make some positive changes there. But he's been really good all year, and there's 3 of his last 4 games he's over 25. He's into the 30s in one of those games. A little more money, like him a little more on FanDuel. Again, just a price play. I dropped the lowest score play. But I like Evan Turner a lot, so I can certainly see pivoting over to that. I'll talk on a couple other value plays real quick, and then I'll hand it back to you there.
Sure.
Just risky, but I still don't hate Moutier in his situation. You hope that Elfrid is back in and maybe down a step there. Somebody on this team is going to have to put up some scoring. We like the matchup with New Orleans quite a bit, so I like playing Moutier. I like playing Knox. They're basically just tournament guys, but Knox looked pretty good in his last game, and that price is obviously very low, so running that out on either side is value. Alonzo Trier is going to start. He's been really consistent. If you go randomly game log check him, he's 20 plus like 8 of the last 9 games or something. He's $4,200 on DK. I certainly don't have any issue running out Trier in tournaments again. He's going to get the start. He takes a lot of shots. We like the pace in this matchup. And again, I like these peripheral pieces around Tim Hardaway Jr. I like Tim Hardaway Jr. too at his price in a spot where he could certainly take a million shots, but he's going to be the one who garners the most attention from Drew Holiday. So these other guys just have a chance to be the guys who end up doing all the shooting on this team. Tournament shares of Moutier or Trier or Knox. I like all of those. And I almost like Trier and Moutier more because I expect Knox to be the chalkiest of those three. So I would give them all roughly the same opportunity. I don't think anyone wants to play Moutier after he crapped it pretty bad last game, but I do like the matchup and in tournaments, especially FanDuel again. He's 4K again. It's droppable. I'm a big fan of that play. Other value guys who are interesting, we talked about Connaughton. I'm a pretty big fan of the Sacramento-Memphis game. I don't mind guys on both teams. So you're looking back at Sacramento. There's a couple guys you can take with Iman Shumpert if you expect this game to stay close, and I do. We were talking, these are two teams that are really overperforming. When you talk about, the Kings versus the Grizzlies here, they're both in the playoffs. They're 8-5 and 8-6, so they are doing better than the Spurs and the Rockets and the Pelicans and several other teams that we expected to be really pacing them here. So I like a lot of guys from that game, and certainly some of the value plays that I don't think get owned quite as much as they could. Bogdanovich in tournaments, Iman Shumpert on either site where he's still 3-something, certainly can fall into some upside with some steals and some blocks. So there's some value, guys.
One thing I misspoke earlier on because I was looking at the outdated ownership info. I didn't refresh and put it on my Excel sheet, but now we got it. Connaughton's actually much chalkier now, which I figured he would be, up to 30%. I guess, how would you handle, you mentioned that you like a couple other guys as pivots, but how would you feel about a super chalky Connaughton?
It really depends on the rest of your lineup. Are you playing, Giannis, which gives you a little more equity in that game, staying a little closer? It really depends on how chalky you're trying to be or not be. I think your most likely outcome is that it's not terribly relevant. I imagine he's giving you, 17 to 26 most games and isn't going to wildly steer the slate. So it depends whether or not there's other guys you look at where you really like the upside. If the positionality stays open, if you are paying up for and playing, Brow or Giannis and really need that extra value, or if there's a lot of really solid 6-7K guys on the slate. I like De'Aaron Fox a lot. I like Mike Conley a lot. I like D'Angelo Russell an incredible amount. There's a lot of guys. I love Dwight Howard. Absolutely love Dwight Howard with returning Jared Allen there. Well, last time, all right, let me put it this way. Last time Dwight Howard in the spring, March, I think it was played against Jared Allen started a game. You know what happened? The 10th guy in the history of the NBA to put up a 30-30 game. First one since Kevin Love in 2010. That was the game against the Nets where Dwight Howard put up 33 and 35 assists, 3 blocks, where Dwight Howard had his 80 whatever the hell fantasy point game. I don't think that happens here. That's with Charlotte. That changes things a little bit, but you already were looking for reasons not to play Dwight Howard, and you had to be like, well, he's lost minutes in these rotations. Yeah, okay, that could happen again, but this matchup with Brooklyn, and you take Rondé out of there, which would have been a little more trouble. Now the whole team is running smaller. There is a large upside. I don't think you get 30-30 again, but I have to predict Dwight Howard for close to 40 fantasy points tonight. So if nothing goes weird, he's an incredibly solid play. And has been shit the last few games for several reasons kind of out of his control with, we'll keep the whole second unit in, and this is a blowout, and so I'm going back. I think he's still like single-digit percentages owned. I'm curious what our ownership has Dwight Howard at on DraftKings. Maybe it's like...
We have him as the chalkiest player on the slate at 42%.
I can't imagine that's the case. He's been under-owned every time that he's come out there.
And he's burned people relatively a couple times. So I think we don't account for human emotion. I mean, obviously it's an algorithm that's being run, but we really don't account for like the feeling of the general casual players who are like, fucking Dwight Howard burned me again and I'll never play him. And I think that usually drives it down a little lower than
it has something to do with, I guess, I'm trying to figure out how many other like really exceptional center plays people are going to be on. People will be a little concerned with Whiteside, though that's a strong play. The price on Towns is up there. The opportunity's down a little bit. The matchup isn't ideal. People play Gasol. People will play Nurkic. But yeah, there aren't a ton of great center plays, so that does make sense. He's going to be up there somewhere and probably, I would think the low to mid-20s. I'll be interested to see if he gets up that high. But anyhow, yeah, it's really hard for me on DK, especially at $5,700. There's a chance he demolishes that price, and really everything needs to go badly for him not to be at least okay here. So Pretty big fan of D12.
Talk to me about the studs. We have a Giannis and AD night, both of them in spots that, I mean, it's hard because some people say you just shouldn't project blowouts. I think it's hard not to project blowouts when you have two really bad teams who've been getting smoked by everybody, and the Bulls and the Knicks on the other side of both those guys. How would you handle both Giannis and AD tonight?
Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of both. You're obviously looking at the blowout risks. I mean, they get the Bulls and the Knicks, which are a couple storied franchises who at the moment are hot ball sweat. Like these are not good basketball teams.
They're not even balls; they're ball sweat.
Yeah, they're hoping to advance to being actual testes at some point, but at the moment
they're from under cheese, is what the Knicks and Bulls are right now.
Yeah, they're not good. They're not good at all. You're dealing with both New Orleans and Milwaukee playing at home. So, yeah, there's something about, trying to project your blowout here. Both those guys tend to get decent run even in the blowouts. Brow a little bit more there. Where they are almost exactly the same price on DK, where they're like $100 from each other, I think I prefer Anthony Davis by a bit. Still just a little more likely to give you, 90 fantasy point games than Giannis, and that the super ceiling percentage does matter a little bit. We're always looking for a slate that just like, oh, I had that guy, I won. It's always strong. New Orleans scorer, a bit more corrupt than Milwaukee scorer. Just a couple little things that I think go a little bit more in his favor. But they're both incredibly strong plays, and entirely correlation. Like if you tell me you have Tim Hardaway, I'm like, okay, then definitely Anthony Davis for me. You tell me you have Zach LaVine, it's like, oh well, then definitely Giannis for me. I mean, they project reasonably close to each other. FanDuel, you end up spending an extra $1,200 or something on Anthony Davis. They're obviously different positions at that point too, but that would be enough that points per dollar that probably swings Giannis into the lead barely for me. So it does end up being a little site dependent. But if you're just gun to my head, who would I project for more fantasy points? I think I ended up with Anthony Davis somewhere around 58 and Giannis somewhere around 55 and change. So it's Anthony Davis for me, just raw production. But it does end up being fairly site dependent.
Also, one correction, because we both have Osmo, the number one player in the world, better known as Alex Baker in the YouTube chat. He's saying, actually, human emotion is one of the main data points we use. And whoever is controlling the Osmo account, who is not me, said we account for everything with the wink emoji. So apparently they are grinding up human entrails and shoving it into the algorithm.
Yeah, it would not be too hard to contribute that in there. Again, if I was writing the algorithm, which has seemed pretty excellent to me, I'm a big fan of again, it's the best ownership projection system I've ever seen by a standard deviation. It's much better. By an order of magnitude. But you just simply look at how chalky a guy was recently and what he performed. So you just, part of doing your ownership algorithm is me looking at their past ownership, right? Well, then you can quantify and modify that by how well they performed versus their price in that. So if it goes back and it looks at Dwight Howard and goes, okay, last time he was 9% owned, and in that situation put up this, that, and the other thing. Wouldn't be too hard, I think, to quantify that qualification.
All right, let's see. Nothing super relevant question-wise. So I guess what other games do you feel like are jumping off the page to you as ones that you think people need some exposure to?
This is definitely a slate where there are a few more games we expect to be, chalkier than others. Miami and Indiana doesn't scream out play a lot of me. Toronto and Boston obviously doesn't scream out play a lot of me. Utah and Philadelphia doesn't scream out play a lot of me. So give me an intro to a game real quick. Give me 30 seconds. I want to put in the rankings is later than
sure.
I like to go.
So let's talk about, here's the game that I find most interesting on the slate. Portland going into a matchup with Minnesota. Minnesota looking resurgent. Obviously Covington picking up 40 minutes in that first game after the trade. The Timberwolves, the Trailblazers actually going against the Timberwolves jump out a lot. I think Minnesota's usage is going to be a little garbled up with Rose back in the lineup. I liked how Wiggins looked. I've liked how Teague looks since he's returned. The Rose usage, though, scares me off a little bit. But the Portland side, I actually think there's a credible argument that Lillard, Nurkic, and McCollum could have a nice day today. And I also don't mind Amino. You mentioned Evan Turner, too, as another guy who's just been steady. I think this Portland side is going to bring it tonight. I think the Timberwolves are now good enough and now not dysfunctional enough, or I guess you could say functional enough, to not get destroyed here. This is one of my favorite games on the slate, and I feel like it's definitely under-owned on our projections. I can say that much.
Yeah, I'm gonna swing over to the projections and take a look in a minute, but you still have to Damian Lillard 9,100 feels like he's, safe in carries upside. Like, you're going to be surprised if you don't get 40, 45, 50 out of him. And 55 doesn't shock you in this particular case. You want to have, more Rose and less Teague. You want a couple other things to play out the way we think they're looking out. So that works. McCollum is still low for his ceiling, where he's still sitting in the mid sixes. You like his spot, so you're absolutely fine with that. I like Turner a little more than Aminu. Aminu being slightly higher upside, but much less consistent, and probably even lower owned. But and it ends up being a little site dependent. I like Turner more on FanDuel on DK. I could see myself much more willing to move over to Aminu. And Nurkic, certainly a guy who carries the ceiling. These two teams did get together this year, and you got, I want to say it was 39 out of Nurkic in that game when they played the Timberwolves.
Playing less minutes too. I think he only had like 23 minutes, and he's been up in the high 20s, low 30s now.
Right, and it's, we expect him to now be fairly popular. There's a lot of other center plays I like a lot. Obviously, Dwight Howard is somebody we've specifically mentioned. I don't have a terrible allergy to running out Jared Allen himself at 51 or 58 in tournaments. Has looked fine even against Dwight. Not having Rondé in there should pencil him in with more time. I would expect him to be 100% or very close. He got sick on Monday and missed that first game. We're now on Friday, so I'm not surprised if he's 100%. And he's a guy who, he could very well pick up 30 minutes and a significant line here, so I like him in tournaments. Nurkic is, back towards the top of his price range. I think we at Osmo did a good job of jumping all over him for the last couple weeks and him hitting some real ceiling games against a few teams. And when he was down at 6,200, 6,500, there were some really nice Nurkic spots. Now he's more popular, and the price is up at, I think, 71 and 8 flat. He still looks very good. He still has, all the ceiling in the world. He sort of reasserted his role in that offense. Isn't, so much in threat of losing time to Zach Collins on a daily basis. So I have no issue with you playing Nurkic in anything. But, that's the time where we start to look at other guys. Talking about this game, I expect Covington to be pretty chalky again. Whenever Covington gets chalky, I'm inclined to look elsewhere. I don't care about the spot. He can fail easily, and it's not a particularly good spot. He hasn't been individually that great against Portland. They have very good defense and pretty good wing defenders. He's fine. But again, you're telling me Covington is, I bet we have him projected for high teens, low 20s. I'll throw a guess out there.
Yeah, almost 25%. And use the promo code live before lock to go check these projections as Eddie talks. You can see these ownership numbers that he's wondering about. But yeah, Covington, we have at 24% on DK.
Yeah, and so, at that point, I'd rather look at a couple other guys. I'm attempting to upload the rankings. Someone else is uploading something else, I presume is what's happening, because when someone else logs into the same remote desktop, I get kicked. So I'm going to make my third attempt here. So just talk for about 20 seconds, and then these will stick, and then I will.
Sure. We actually just got some news in from our guy, Ro Holman, in the premium Slack. And again, use that promo code live before lock in the premium to get access to the premium Slack. A lot of smart people there exchanging thoughts all day, as well as breaking news during the show. And Eddie popping in, Josh Engelman popping in, a lot of our guys, I'm popping in, Lofty. Everybody's popping in. It's like a sitcom. We're all a bunch of Kramers. But Ro Holman is saying that Alvin Gentry anticipates Elfrid Payton will play. Yep. We'll see how it goes about him going through pregame warmups. It's been close a couple times. But how does Elfrid affect your views on New Orleans in this game? We kind of talked about it a little bit already.
Yeah, so it makes you like guys on New York a little bit more, I think, for the relative offensive value they're going to put out there. A lot of the fill-ins who are getting time in there, from Jackson to Frazier for whomever, did suffer the quality of their wing defense a little bit, and it takes some value off all the other guys for New Orleans, or at least specifically from Drew Holiday, who won't handle the point as much. I expected Elfrid to play. He almost played on Wednesday. They even talked about him playing on Monday. He's missed 8 or 9 games. The team was undefeated when he went out. So I do think that this does a lot for them. So, Elfrid himself very much in play. Keep, in mind for that, whether or not we get his minutes will be monitored bullshit, or whether or not we get he will have a minutes limit, or might have a minutes limit, or what exact verbiage they put on the uncertainty with him returning from such a long hiatus. But 5,600 on DK certainly makes sense for firing a bullet at Elf there. But definitely through the slightly improved defense. Now, again, Elfrid, NBA standard hasn't been a great defender, but actually won Defensive Player of the Year for the Midwest Conference or whatever conference he was playing in college And it is still better than the other guys that he'll be replacing when he picks up his time in the lineup. So a little more nervous about blowout now. Doesn't really affect Anthony Davis much, but you're taking a pretty serious peg off of Drew Holiday, who at this point I just sort of don't think you need to do it. There's no issue with having him in anything. Like now his projection for me goes from 44 to 41, and he's not that cheap anymore. And, I'd rather have him in cash than tournaments, where it's definitely taking some off the upside. But takes a little shine off Etuan Moore, who had just had his best 2 games of the year, and siphoned into it. He has some very interesting usage and plays where he isolates one side of the court with Anthony Davis that are a little less likely to happen now. So a little less likely you get 23 shots out of Etuan Moore again, any of that nonsense. So, if you were riding those 2 hot games, I would have been inclined to get off that train anyway. Now I'm really inclined to get off that train. Randall, I think, now becomes even a little more sketchy. You need a few other things to go that way. So, that's how I look at the is Jabari in a revenge spot? Well, he's in a revenge spot. I don't think you can argue that he's not in a revenge spot. I mean, I don't know how angry he is personally. Like, he tore both ACLs. Like, at some point you have to be like, yes, I guess I understand you not wanting to, super max me off my rookie deal in that situation. But, if I got traded from the Bucks and they turned out looking this good as they do right now and ended up on the Bulls, who don't look good, I'd be pretty pissed. So, I doubt that factors into a lot, but
I like Jabari usually in tight defensive spots for LaVine, because I think he just gets a lot of the trickle down usage when LaVine isn't running at full steam. And the issue though is that the Bucks are pretty good across the board there. So I don't really think it's a great Jabari pivot spot. Like, he's going to be angry, but I don't think it's going to matter much.
Yeah, so I talk about another guy. I really, really like D'Angelo Russell.
I do too.
He's shooting guard on FanDuel, by the way, which is incredible. Like, I'm a massive fan of that. That's very Dennis Schroeder-y. The price is still very tolerable. Has been incredibly good against the Wizards and against John Wall in the past. And, if you want to go game log hopping, certainly nothing there that concerns you. Got all the chance in the world to start off, super hot last game, and was 3 of 14 from the field in the first half or something, and lost a lot of his time in the second half, and they closed out other ways, and they got their asses kicked, and that didn't work out. But it is really not hard for me to envision a scenario. Like, certainly if I have any exposure to the Wizards of value, maybe we don't count Dwight Howard in that estimation. But if you have Beal or Wall, I'm so inclined to play D'Angelo Russell, because you want that game to stay close. And I do expect it to. This certainly isn't a Wizards team that it seems to be firing on all cylinders. Not even having RHJ out, a couple more minutes and a little bit more usage trickles all the way back up top to him there. I like Dinwiddie a lot, but I absolutely love D'Angelo Russell. Again, it's in that, maybe he completely forgot how to shoot a basketball, but there's nothing that doesn't make me like him all the way up to. I'm going to actually load up our ownership now, so I'm curious how he walks in there.
Also, apparently Derrick Rose is officially in too. I assumed he would be because they said that he practiced yesterday and looked fine. So, but Rose is officially in.
Yeah, so talking about another hot spot there, I'm more inclined to not play Jeff Teague than play Jeff Teague. Jeff Teague is still underpriced. Jeff Teague in this spot should cost $6,600. So we're still getting him on DK, $5,900. He is discounted. There's nothing wrong with playing him. But in this spot with Lillard, if you look at, with Rose back and everything going on and more mouths to feed and the minutes now coming down to 31, I'll guess, as opposed to randomly banging out 40 minutes in this situation, and him being very popular, I think you get, production from 20 to 40 here, and it's much more unlikely that you get these super mosh games that he got last game, and certainly the game before that where he was $4,500 and was a big money maker, and I was a massive fan there. I'm more inclined to get away from Jeff Teague at this point. There's at no point would I look at him in line and be like, hey, that's not good, but I think there's a real chance he gets 24 fantasy points tonight, and you're going to feel good to be on the other side of it. And again, all you're really fading is him getting 40 plus, which is certainly less likely in the matchup with other guys back, with the minutes now a little more reduced. So that makes me want to move off that. Someone said go ahead and make a take on Jimmy Butler. I would rather play Jimmy Butler than Ben Simmons. Like, I don't know how this works out for Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons needs to bring the ball up and have the ball in his hands and initiate and execute the offense to do all the things that get him fantasy value. He can't shoot. So if you can't shoot and you're not holding the ball, I don't know what you're doing to, make the team function on that end of the court. Like, I don't mean to be overly reductive here, but what's the plan to make this somehow function for him? Or he doesn't shoot. I won't even go with can't shoot, because again, it really does not shoot the ball from outside of X feet. So again, he hasn't gotten so cheap that, like, you're still needing to get 50 out of him. Now, I will say, in a tough matchup, Ben Simmons played the Jazz twice last year and got 50 in both games. Barely, but got 50. Like, that's small sample size, different team. But yeah, I would project him from somewhere between 35 and 40. I think both he and Butler are in worse spots next to each other than they were in the past. I think they're still figuring things out. It's difficult to know how to look at this Utah team, who I was incredibly high on, and so were a lot of other people going into the beginning of this season, and just lost by 50 to they're also 7-7, by the way, I believe. So listing teams that are behind both Sacramento and Memphis in the standings, there's another one of, 4 of what I expected to be the top 5 teams in the West are under the Kings and the Grizzlies. So, they're all packed within a game or two, but still. It's definitely a difficult spot to target. So when you give me that, I'll spend less money. I don't mind playing Embiid. Embiid at, 10-3 on DK, that's fine. He's going to be least affected by this because there's rebounds and putbacks and stuff. I don't think the matchup with Gobert is ideal. They've only faced each other once, if memory serves.
Yes, that's correct. And it was before Embiid was like fully rolling. He was still on
minute. He played 19 minutes in that game or something. So there's no relevant tape to look at because I ran a query and only got one segment and didn't have much on it. But I do think Embiid is less affected, and his price has been brought down some, and I'm just fine playing Joel Embiid. I have him ranked very similarly to, say, Karl Anthony Towns. So, Embiid, I have no issue with. Redick, I do think continues, by virtue of these trades, to get more open shots, and that's a guy who can really hit his open shots. Like, he's one of those guys who's like, oh, open shots! Okay, I'll take JJ Redick then. So, I do think he is going to get a little more valuable as a result of this trade. He's still a little too cheap, especially on FanDuel, so no issue with JJ Redick. Probably still just tournaments for me. More inclined to pay down a little more for some strong value at that position. But, Jimmy Butler's 7,300 on DK. Okay. Like, last game was still bad. It was in the 20s. Like, he can fail at that price, and this is Utah who we obviously can't guarantee, but has a real chance of throwing up a very quality defensive effort in this situation. So I have no issue if you run Jimmy Butler in a tournament, but I'm not as excited about $7,300 Jimmy Butler as you think I would have been some time ago. I still think, Redick has a role. I still think they're trying to figure out what the hell, exactly how this offense is going to work. So, I think I look at him as a very reasonable tournament play. He's going to be, I'll guess, 15% owned, maybe 18. I'm going to load our ownership projections now so I can stop guessing and having you read a computer screen for me. I've turned you into Gwen DeMarco from Galaxy Quest. Like, all I do is repeat the computer.
That was a very esoteric reference, but I think I know the movie. I don't know the actual reference, but I'll laugh.
You're officially a very good Ed McMahon, whose job is just laugh at everything Johnny does. So I really appreciate you putting out that effort there. But Gwen DeMarco,
I like being supportive. I encourage a supportive environment on any live streams I'm a part of.
I'm digging it. I appreciate that. That was Sigourney Weaver's character from Galaxy Quest, who just repeated the computer. So the computer would be like, beryllium sphere supply at 12%. And she'd go, Captain, the beryllium sphere supply is at 12%. And other people were like, will you stop doing that? She's like, look, I have one job. It's a stupid job, but I'm going to do it. So making you read the ownership to me seemed...
I relate to that now that you explained it completely.
Yeah, I was like, what? I will hit the 3 keystrokes to load our ownership instead of continuing to ask you that. So... and again, we had last show, I guessed ownership 6 or 7 times and ended up being pretty close. Here, Butler well lower than I estimated, about half actually. He's sitting at 8%. I like him at 8%. There's a number of ways he can get to, there's pretty good chance he gets 35 and doesn't kill you. And some chance he gets 45 and makes you look really good. Some chance he gets to 50. It's still Jimmy Butler. So I'm probably a little bit of a fan of that play. Slightly above like. I like pretty much. That's a good play. I like that.
Let's take a question from the YouTube chat because they're asking about something that I think is interesting: the Sacramento Kings, and we haven't talked much about the Grizzlies and Kings yet. Bo Jones asking about Willie Cauley-Stein, but I guess tell me your thoughts about this game overall. Was a pretty fruitful matchup just a couple weeks ago with the Kings and Memphis. Gasol was the only guy who underperformed, but he just had a bad shooting day.
Yep.
A lot of chalk on that side too for the Grizzlies.
Yeah, low scoring game. That was 95, 92, 97, 93, yep. 90, whatever. But, game in the mid 180s to high 180s. But we got a really nice density of minutes. If you looked at the Sacramento starters, I don't have it up in front of me, but they all ran 30-plus minutes in that game. Now, that was before the evolution of the bench for the Sacramento team where they are working Bogdanovic back in. I expect him to start over Iman Shumpert in 10 days or so. At some point, I think they will make that switch. Maybe not, but I would expect that to happen at some point. I don't think they take Hield out. There's a chance they take Bielitsa out instead. I don't think that happens. I don't think they want to run that small with their starting lineup every game. But in any case, they are trying to give Bogdanovic 25 minutes every night. So that's pulling a couple minutes off, mostly Bielitsa and Shumpert. So in close games where you used to be getting 32 minutes out of each of those guys, now you're getting 26 or 27. They're still both in plays in tournaments. I certainly like Shumpert a little bit more, like 3,800, 3,900. I like him more on FanDuel because A, you're dropping, and B, you're getting the extra points for steals. So if you want to make that play, that's probably where I'd be a little more inclined to look at it. But if you expect this game to remain close, and I generally do, and again, it did when they played a couple weeks ago, you can really count on there are going to be basically 7 guys getting appreciable minutes for this Kings team. And Fox isn't going to get all he can handle. Might get 32, might get 40. Like, they've run him out there ridiculous amounts in some games. So I like Fox, especially on DK, where he's still 6,800. Put up, I don't have it in front of me, 42, 44, 45 fantasy points the first time they played them.
Much more than you would think.
Yeah, which is more than you think. There were 2 steals and a block, so there was a little bit of bullshit in there. Didn't even shoot that great, though, so it took a real roll there. So you feel pretty safe about that 6,800. I like running Conley back. I think the DK lineup let me find the placeholder I was toying with. Yeah, it does have both those guys in it. I like having those guys running it back at each other. So, big fan of Conley, big fan of Fox. You have to like the pace-up spot for all the other guys on Memphis. So I do think you get random ceiling game out of Kyle Anderson or Garrett Temple or, and again, I have to start saying his name because at a certain point it's just making me look bad enough, Shelvin Mack, who me and a lot
inexplicably.
Yeah, me and other guys, I can't imagine I'm the only one who is surprised by his continued emergence in production, but Sacramento running at, the fastest or close to the fastest speed in the NBA. I haven't checked pace in a couple days, but they're running really, really fast. And I think people do over-specify that. I've spoken before, people get super worked up over, like, if you say the fastest in the NBA instead of the 4th fastest in the NBA, people look at the first one and go like, wow, like they're much more impressed by that. Could be the same damn number. The top 4 teams in the NBA could be at, 107, 106.9, 106.8, and 106.7. And 4th is basically first, and certainly within the margin of the error being all of a month into the season. So that's, again, one of the reasons why, rather than look it up and say first, second, third, or 4th, they are running wicked fast, and they are a bit sloppy and young. And so I like some of those value pieces to one of them at least to pick up a game. I like them both in tournaments, either Temple or Anderson. Jaren Jackson Jr., you have to figure this is a spot where the foul trouble isn't significant. He was good in that first game, didn't get in foul trouble, had a little over 30 fantasy points in 30 minutes, especially at that DK price where he's 54, I want to say. I like having Jaren Jackson Jr. as part of your stack in this game. Gasol, obviously, is a bit more of a cash game center, but no issue with you having any amount of Marc Gasol. Hield is the guy I'm probably the least thrilled about paying the price for. Took 20 shots in the first game, made 10. If I'm remembering all this right, I think it was 10 of 20 in that first game. Had himself a pretty good game, but a lot of his peripherals have started to fall off and will continue to fall off, and he loses a minute or two to the emerging Bogdanovic. And his ceiling is always a tricky one. He's very much like, say, Tim Hardaway Jr., where he tends to not produce a lot, but points, rebounds, maybe an assist a game, and you're just hoping to get lucky and spike steals and blocks, which aren't really his thing. So once their price gets in that 6,800, 7K range, you really need a lot of things to work your way. You need 30, 35 real points or, 3, 4 combined steals and blocks, which really isn't something that guy does. So of all, and I like him just fine, but just of the guys in this game, Hield the one I'm probably leaning on the least hard, or Bielitsa, whose minutes I do think are a little bit imperiled as well.
For the cash people, don't Embiid, my status in the premium Slack asking must-haves for FanDuel cash. I don't know if I would want to you commit that much to must-haves, but who are the guys you'd be weighing the most in cash games tonight on FanDuel? And I guess if you want to do DK too and run through it.
I don't know if there are really any must-haves in FanDuel and cash tonight. There are a lot of guys I think are strong. But I'm trying to think of somewhere where I'm like, if you don't have this, this is a mistake. Like, you can make an argument for Darren Collison, who's getting appreciable minutes again. Point guard, a lot of the more expensive ones are, well, more expensive, and so I can see not going there. So I think you can make a valid lineup construction playing. It really depends how stud-heavy you go in your cash lineup. So if you play, say, Giannis and Brow, which I do not think is the worst idea, and you run a mid-price center like, say, Dwight Howard, and you fill out the rest of the lineup with Darren Collison and Evan Turner, makes some sense. I mean, he's gotten 20 plus fantasy points at his 4,500 in 8 of 9 games or something like that, and 30 a couple times, and frequently 25. And that matchup with Minnesota we like. So Evan Turner I can see fitting in there. I haven't spent a lot of time analyzing the drop a guy in cash and how that affects things, but in general, it would make you more likely to play a guy like Moutier or Shumpert or guys who you can take some more risk in cash because of that. So you could play, there are guys who seem like cash plays just based on they're so cheap, but they're still not consistent. Moutier would be an example. FanDuel, Kelly Olynyk would be an example. Kelly Olynyk is $3,900 on FanDuel still. I'm going to like him at that price all the time. I like Whiteside a lot. You can run Whiteside out in anything. Again, FanDuel is a little more expensive than you want to pay. These two teams played earlier this year. That was the game Whiteside had, I think, 11 and 20 in. He had a 20 rebound game. If you look back at his last, half dozen games against the Pacers or against Miles Turner, he averages 19 rebounds. It's an incredibly good rebounding spot.
Anybody who plays slowly, good spots for Whiteside.
Yeah, exactly. When he gets into the half court a little bit more there. So, but musts for cash on FanDuel, there really aren't any. I can't think of anyone where I'm like, oh, you don't have this guy, it's a mistake. Maybe Giannis at 11.5 was a little underpriced. Really hard to see him not giving you some value, but I apologize for the weak take. DK is a little easier where I feel like, Conley feels like an incredibly strong cash game play. And Dwight Howard feels like an incredibly strong cash game play. I think those are the two off the top of my head where I'm like, I really want to work this guy in. So feel free to follow up with a follow-up question and say, how about this guy? I thought this guy was sort of a must-have, but not really anyone on FanDuel. DK, I feel like Conley and Howard are the guys who are just underpriced enough, and I would be really surprised if they managed to fall on their faces in this spot. Probably Connaughton too is going to end up being sort of a must in cash. I'll click on him and take a real specific look at this game log. But DiVincenzo played in the last game. I think he played 6 minutes before he went out. So you're looking at Connaughton last 4 games, 21 minutes, 25 fantasy points, 26 minutes, 27 fantasy points, 18 minutes, 16 fantasy points, 27 minutes, 33 fantasy points. That's all exceptional. That's better than a fantasy point a minute over the course of those 4 games. Shooting a little bit over his head. 7-11 in that first game. Okay, that's 63%. 3 of 8, 1 of 3, and then 6 of 9, which is nice. But again, a little over average what you would think you would get out of him. So these are probably, he's not going to be a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy in general most of the time, but now he is getting the Bulls, and DiVincenzo is out, so he's probably the next guy where I'm like, yeah, I can see sort of rolling him out in a lot of cash. I think he would be pretty chalky, and I think that's about right.
Seeing if we've missed any major games. Any interest at all in anything in Toronto and Boston? Some people have asked about Ibaka. We're going to run through all your either ors in the premium Slack and the YouTube chat. So drop them in now, but we'll speed round those. But I want to make sure we hit on all the major game notes. Toronto at Boston, not very sexy, but it's going to be competitive and something's going to come from this. What would you do with it, if anything? Yeah,
great basketball game. I really look forward to watching the game. These two teams got together earlier this year, obviously, and that was a game I really enjoyed watching. But all right, so Toronto, I think you can play Kyle Lowry in a tournament if you want to. You're going to get low ownership. No one wants a piece of this game, and has fallen off a lot over the last few games. So whereas I do think he was playing over his head the first, say, 7 games of the year where he was averaging 12 assists a game. One other thing, I want to check the back-to-backs real quick, because something just came to mind. We were talking about Sorry, thinking and typing and answering questions concurrently, and unsurprisingly, my wee brain can't handle all those things at the exact same time. But I think the Kings play again tomorrow, and because of that, I'm not positive that Bogdan is going to play. They do. So the Kings play again tomorrow. So looking at back-to-backs real quick, a lot of teams play again tomorrow. We get a lot of back-to-backs here. The Jazz play... Let me make sure I'm looking at the right columns here. Okay, I got this. The Jazz play tomorrow. The Raptors play tomorrow, which is the reason that it popped into my head there. The Kings play tomorrow. The 76ers play again tomorrow. The Pelicans play again tomorrow. The Pacers play again tomorrow. The Bulls play again tomorrow. The Celtics play again tomorrow. And the Nets play again tomorrow. That's a
Lazy
lot
scheduling.
That's a lot of teams on the front end of a back-to-back. So, long way around of saying, I'm not sure Bogdan Bogdanovic plays both ends of this back-to-back. I'm not sure Kawhi Leonard plays both ends of this back-to-back. Now, I think it makes sense Kawhi plays tonight and not tomorrow against the Bulls, which is who they have on the second time. So, pretty sure Kawhi is going to play there, and we may even have that lineup. I feel like I may have seen that news. But, just something to mention there. I don't think
Kawhi does love ducking tough matchups, though. He did duck Giannis and LeBron.
He will start. There it is. Raptors lineup.
There you go.
He is starting. Okay, there. So
it would be funny though if he's like, "Fuck it, I'll play the Bulls. I don't want to deal with the Celtics."
Yeah, he's working for a contract. I mean, he is, but
very Le'Veon Bell move that would be.
Don't get me started on that. We don't have A, not my source of expertise, and B, we don't have the time to spare. But I don't mind Kawhi in tournaments. I don't mind Lowry in tournaments. Although, if they're going to take it easy on him, you would like the fact that Kawhi is in and now I expect to probably sit tomorrow. I'm a little less interested in Kyle because he's going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting. He's going to be popular tomorrow, by the way, with no Kawhi against the Bulls, but we'll get into that tomorrow. But I'm not sure Bogdan Bogdanovic is going to play. Just want to throw that out there real quick, which has no real relevance except for the fact that, if you're rolling him out on FanDuel, I'm not sure he's entirely cleared for back-to-backs. But anyhow, getting back to this game, Horford had a big game the first time he can play. I don't think that's something that we can terribly expect there. I'm not super thrilled with the matchup with Ibaka, but he's been good a few times in the past. So like Horford in a tournament, fine. Ibaka, even cash for a tournament, Ibaka's just been good this year. He was going to be good the more he played at center as opposed to at power forward, so I'm not entirely shocked by that. But feel free to run some Ibaka out there. He's had some real ceiling, 15 of 17 from the field games and some real crazy shit. But, I would rather do it on days where you don't have Kawhi. But, so I'm not a big fan of Ibaka, but I would never look at him in a lineup and think that's outright wrong. I don't think it's a night you need to Pascal. Danny Green is still 4K, but has been terrible. His last 4 games are single digits, teens.
Bad back,
teens,
not a thing you want a player to have.
Yeah, bad back, not a thing. Might be better. Certainly cheap. 150 lineups if I saw some. I don't know, but it doesn't seem like a spot you need to go Danny Green versus the Celtics. So, not a ton of interest in Toronto. There are very few spots if I'm building 150 lineups. I have 0 Jonas Valanciunas. Like, I would end up having a few shares of him every day because there's just a chance that you get random whatever foul trouble and he gets 24 minutes and 40 fantasy points at 2% on. So, but again, not a spot I'm particularly in love with him. Looking over at the Celtics, you can Tatum, not, meh. You can Kyrie, who has certainly looked better recently, and you're going to get him low-owned, and if you think he just continues to assert himself and there's a real, culture change as far as his role with the team, sure. Gordon Hayward, 5,400, they've removed his minutes limit. Nice. Not a great matchup, and removing the minutes limit of a guy who's getting 26 minutes on a team where now he gets 29. Like, no one on either team may see 30 minutes outside of, like, Lowry and Leonard. These teams, run really, really deep benches. So
and Marcus Morris back, too.
Yeah. Who at FanDuel, Marcus Morris is just objectively a little cheaper than he should be because of his bench roll, and FanDuel has that sort of wrinkle in their pricing algorithm. If you wanted to run Marcus Morris in a tournament, wouldn't hate it. But yeah, I think you're, trying to get someone in from this game. Will someone be good in this game? Yeah, probably 1, but I'd be surprised if it's 2 and shocked if it's 3, so meh. Like, if you want to take a piece of one of those guys, I would not objectively look at it and be like, oh, that's terrible. But this really is a situation where, you're hoping that game stays close, which is likely. 2 teams we like. And the Knicks game gets a wicked blowout, and the same thing with the Bulls game, and so a lot of those guys aren't getting to value, so grabbing someone here at 6K who has a big game and gets 40-42 works for you, but no one jumps off the page at me here, so you're firing a bullet if you take a shot here, I think.
We for some reason a lot of people playing cash today and asking cash questions. So let's speed around some cash questions. Sure. Collison or Turner for the last spot in DK cash?
Cash has to be Collison. I like Miles. Oh, I'm sorry. You're probably asking Evan Turner. Miles Turner is also almost exactly the same price. All of those players are 45, 44, and 46 on DK. You probably mean Evan Turner. Oh, boy. I'm probably playing Evan Turner, but it's really close. Collison has been starting to get the minutes again by they're just not using Tyreek Evans, who I still don't hate in tournaments. He's like 4,000 and 4,200 now. That's now the appropriate price. He can randomly bust out 30. He had 235s in the first week of the season in like 23 minutes each. Now he's not even really getting the 23 anymore. You're getting 18, 19. Little Kojo lost time and picking up a lot of time for Darren Collison. So Darren Collison has, 34 and 35 minutes the last two games. I like him a lot. I would slightly rather play Evan Turner because looking at this year, just historically, I think it's a little less likely he completely disappears. And I like the spot a little more with Minnesota. So I would play Turner there in cash. Very close, but I think I would still play Turner.
Let's see. Jimmy Butler or Gobert for cash?
I'm going to go with Gobert. Again, just, thinking about it, cash has a lot to do with solidity. It seems fairly unlikely Gobert absolutely disappears here. Little more likely that happens with Butler and what's, sort of a tough shot. So close, but probably in cash, I would rather play Rudy Gobert.
How about Nurkic for DK cash?
I don't mind it. Again, this is one of the ones we're talking about with, talking about guys like Moutier, etc., who you're not playing Gobert in cash, or you're not playing, Nurkic in cash because he's so consistent, but you're just playing him because he's still underpriced versus what he's throwing up. Like when he gets any sort of reasonable minutes, he's getting you, 40, 45, which feels wonderful at 7K. And even when the minutes get shit on a little bit or, you're dealing with the possibility in the past that you've seen challenged minutes where you had more of an exterior threat from Towns with the lineups that were there and he was pulling them away from the basket. So they made changes to other lineups to counter that a little more. I think he does play all his minutes. So I don't mind him in cash because I do think he does get 28 minutes tonight, not 22. But one of the reasons I'm okay with him is even in 22 minutes, you might get like 32 out of him, which isn't exceptional, but doesn't tank your cash lineup. So I'm okay if you played Nurkic in that spot.
How about Chris Middleton in cash?
Yeah, again, fine. Just a guy who is underpriced, especially if you don't have, Giannis. Although playing them both in cash, where they are both a little too cheap doesn't kill me. Yeah, that's fine. Again, he's not a guy I'm like, yes, I need to get Middleton in my cash lineup, but I wouldn't look at him in there and be like, oh, that's a woeful mistake. I think that's fine. I can't offhand if there's anyone I might prefer in that price and range. Like if you're playing him over Mike Conley, I don't like that. If you're playing him over De'Aaron Fox, I think I still prefer Fox in cash. So, but I don't look at Middleton as an outright mistake. So hopefully I'm giving you the sort of ambivalence I have towards that.
All right, let's speed around these because they're adding up fast. They're multiplying like rabbits.
Yes, sir.
Wall or Lillard for a FanDuel GPP?
That's, for me, going to depend on correlation. I like them both a fair amount. So, my answer would depend on the number of, Minnesota players, for example, in your lineup. So if it is completely, if there's nothing to be, if there is no correlation issues, you have no one or even amounts from opposing sides there, I probably will very slightly side with Damian Lillard. But I would bend that very quickly if you had more guys in the Washington game.
It's fair. D'Angelo Russell, is he okay for FanDuel cash?
I got to look at shooting guard over there real specific. Again, I'm a huge fan of the spot, but I was a huge fan of his spot last game, and he just completely shat himself. And clearly there is still a hook there for him when it's not going well. I mean, it just happened. So unlikely that I'm going to say yes to this question, but I want to look because, again, we are dealing with... So guys I would consider, fine in cash on FanDuel. I mean, I don't want to spend 10K on Oladipo, but if you did, that seems fine in cash. He's probably going to get 40. He's really rarely missing that. I don't hate the matchup for him. He's been banging out 50 a game recently, so Oladipo wouldn't anger me. Holiday I still think is very solid in cash. Levine is a little more expensive than I want to pay again, but okay, I can see that. I wouldn't hate Hardaway. I probably would play Hardaway over D'Angelo in cash, which feels weird, but no one is jumping out as definitely. Justin Holiday is a good cash play at 5,300. Garrett Temple is a good cash play at 4,600.
Would you go Giannis or AD? Sorry, we got a ton of questions
No
here.
problem. Connaughton, I'm just finishing up that shooting guard thing real
Sure.
quick. Connaughton wouldn't shock me at 4,300 in cash, and then I guess I'll be done reading it. This no one is a pure punt who I like. You said Giannis or AD?
Yep.
We talked about it before. Again, it ends up being site dependent. If you are on DraftKings, which is where I presume that question is, I'm going to play Anthony Davis. Close, but I will play Anthony Davis. Just project him for a few more points. So
rank these 3 DK centers for GPP: Gasol, Nurkic, and Gobert.
Yeah, they end up being very, very similar for me. I will probably barely say in exactly that order, where I would slightly rather play Gasol in a tournament to Nurkic to Gobert. Again, there's and that's me making some guesses on the ownership. I'm going to run the same thing in there. Now we have Gasol sitting here at 27%. So
yep.
If that is as in that case, I will defer to our rankings, and I'll just say Nurkic, then Gasol, then Gobert. I have each of those two top guys projected a good bit over Gobert, and Nurkic is going to be, I thought, only a little lesser on here. We have him less than half on Marc Gasol, so I'll assume that's correct, and I'll say Nurkic, Gasol, Gobert.
Would Giannis AD or Joel Embiid, would you change that in any way, or would it still be AD?
No, it's still AD pretty significantly. Like, I don't think you look at Embiid and you're like, wow, what a great spot. Like, his role in this team is really secure. He has looked incredible this year. You still don't look at Gobert and the Jazz and be like, again, when you talk about Gobert's ability is really to inhibit movement and take up space and guard the rim, and so he's more of an issue for Ben Simmons. Who, again, was very good against him twice last year. But you're looking at the guys who are trying to use the paint and drive and do things of that nature more than you're specifically looking at him limiting opposing centers, per se. So I like Embiid just fine, but still, which I'm most excited of playing in cash is still going to be Anthony Davis for me out of those three.
Also, just so people know, asking you the roar questions, it's usually better just to refer to Eddie's rankings and Osmo's rankings for these two, just in case we do miss one. I'm trying to get them all, but just in case, use those right now since you have 5 minutes left. Promo code live before lock if you want to do it real fast. Conley, Jaren Jackson, or Lillard, and Conley and Jackson, or Lillard and Crab.
Yeah, again, the first one, you are taking two guys from Memphis. So I slightly prefer Conley and Jaren Jackson, and quite a bit more prefer them if you are running it back with someone from Sacramento. So I would be like, the first one for me, and try to play De'Aaron Fox would be my answer. Or the first one for me, and try to play Willie Cauley-Stein, who I think is fine in tournaments, though I don't like him as much as Gasol in the matchup is there. But try to play Hield also. But try to run it back with something. But I will generally defer towards Triple J and MCon there.
Trier, Collison, or Favors for DK Cash?
Collison in cash. I think it's most likely he still gets 35 minutes. It's hard to imagine it, 4,500. The other guys I think make exceptional tournament plays. I probably would still even have Trier over Favors, but that's very close. And again, this Knicks lineup can go south at any time. But Trier, and again, he's like 4,200 on DK, I think, has been incredibly consistent. You've been getting, 20, 25, 23, 22, 25, 22, 26. Like, it's just out there, which seems a little bit odd due to his lack of peripherals, but has been, getting the job done. But I would still say Collison and cash amongst those guys.
Gobert, I think you might have answered this one, but Gobert or Butler for cash?
I did, and I said Gobert, and we'll stick with it.
Yeah, somebody got it again. A lot of people wondering about Gobert Butler questions for some reason. Trier and AD or Dame and Middleton for DK?
Whom and AD?
Trier and AD.
Or Dame and Middleton. 81. I will barely take Trier and AD.
Wendell Carter or Jaren Jackson?
Yeah, Wendell Carter, I'm curious what we have him projected. There's a lot of chat about Gobert, who I think we had at like 3%, which is interesting to hear. Wendell Carter
we have at 20.
Yeah, that's about what I expected there. He's at 17 or 20. So the question was Carter or whom in cash?
Carter or Jaren Jackson?
In cash, I think that is Wendell Carter. And in tournaments, you can certainly make an argument there. Like Jaren Jackson, we have currently a couple points higher projected. I do think the ceiling is maybe a touch higher. But Carter Jr., for various reasons, hasn't really performed the last few games. And they're not, because he isn't good. If you go back and ignore the last few games, the 7 games before that, he was banging out an average of 40. You know, in a matchup with Milwaukee, overall, we're not certainly thrilled with, but the micro matchup, you know, Brolo and things of that nature. So I will take Carter in cash, probably Jackson in tournaments barely, but I like Carter in tournaments quite a bit as well, especially when you end up looking at the massive ownership for Dwight Howard we're talking about. If Dwight Howard's 45% owned. Also, by the way, shout out to the slate for 4 7 o'clock games and 3 8 o'clock games out of 8 games. It's pretty exciting that 7 out of 8 games starting in you know, the first hour.
Just get it out of the way fast. That's better. No time to savor it. Mac or Collison?
I guess. Collison and cash for me, but I'll play Mac in tournaments. Again, I like that game, and we presume there's, you know, he will continue to perform and get serious amounts of minutes. So I will take Mac in tournaments there. So if you're building a tournament lineup, I'll return to the Mac.
Jackson and Butler or Jabari and Middleton for cash?
Which Jackson?
Jaren
Jackson and Butler or Jabari and Middleton. I don't like either of those in cash, but I'll take the first one between the two of them.
Gobert or Middleton for cash?
Middleton, but again, very, very close. I generally would rather play the center in that situation, but the matchup, maybe Embiid is getting all the rebounds. I'll barely go Middleton there. But again,
Whiteside and Cat or Giannis and Howard for DK cash?
Yeehaw. Giannis and Howard.
Moutier okay in the tournament?
Yes, absolutely.
Conley and Triple J or Lillard and Crab?
Conley and Triple J. People are way more confident in Crab than I'd like them to be. Like, Crab can get there sometimes, and having RHJ out helps. And I have no issue with Crab in tournaments at 3,700 or whatsoever, but always sort of inordinate amount of interest there.
A real tough low usage year for Crab so far, and I don't know he's going to break out of it that fast. Teague or Howard?
We are locked. I will say Howard in cash. I don't have a problem if you play Teague in tournaments there.
All right, I think we got the premium Slack. Let's see if there's anything for you to be.
I'll do some. I'll prepare some daddy like while you see if there's anything to.
Yeah, let's see anything.
Most people
YouTube
playing where there is late spot, which I kind of like. It's a bit of a release valve on the show. Because, again, actually, we just started half the games, which, again, is 4 out of 8.
This is going to be a good one. But I'm going to yell at somebody real fast. So I don't often ban people for doing fake news stuff in the chat because I like to give people a little bit more rope. But saying AD is resting is not a thing. There's no reason to do that. So, Ryan Lucido, you are banned from chat forever.
Okay.
There. You can watch our videos. You can't participate. You can make another account, and I'll never know.
Yeah.
But don't fucking lie in chat. It's a dick move. Don't do that. Don't troll. Don't be shitheads. There's no reason to do that.
I'm curious what time did he do it at? Did he fuck it up and do it at 7:01 where it would be irrelevant because on FanDuel you were already locked and on DraftKings?
No, I think he did it before we were locked. Yeah, but either way, Ryan, I don't know Ryan Lucido. If I recognize your name, you get a little more slack. But just don't do that. There's no reason. There's no reason to do that. Don't come and be a troll. We don't need that.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Shaking my fist. I gotta send a message. I have to be the stern dictator sometimes.
Wagging your finger, so to speak, at the collective chat behavior. Let's download thingy. YouTube chat, very enthusiastic. Ban them all. Wow, I just replaced AD. He didn't do it, but if you take your news from random YouTube assholes, you probably deserve that, but just don't do it. The problem is sometimes YouTube asshole is first. So when it hits at 6:59 in 10 seconds, that's a kick in the balls. And when you have the option to go, okay, pivot Giannis, which you did for most places on DK, I can see doing that. Because if you were like me and you thought, Brow's going to get 59, Giannis is going to get 56 and a half. 45 seconds left and the guy goes, yeah, Brow was resting. I'd be like, all right. Cluck him the hell out of there just because I don't care that much. But, definitely not kosher. Daddy does not like fake YouTube.
Daddy and Uncle Chris don't like that. Yeah, so shame on you.
Daddy does not like fake YouTube. So loading the DraftKings ownership. Sorry, it took me a minute to...
So, it's time for America's favorite game Daddy likes. So, it's Eddie, tell us, what is birthday Daddy like? I mean, technically not, but your birthday weekend, we're rolling.
Yeah, so I got this one right again there. I thought that the ownership on Dwight Howard would be in the low to mid-20s. And Dwight Howard, 25%. So that's one of the reasons I was a huge fan there. I didn't think he would be chalk on the slate. He is chalk on the 4 early games. but 25% Dwight Howard. So I'm a big fan of having that because, again, not obviously we've seen any number of scenarios in which he can fail. He's done it a few times recently, but you need something to go sideways. If he plays 30 minutes, I like the micro matchup. I like the macro matchup. There is obviously, I mean, and it's not when you're talking about, oh, he had a 30-30 game. It must have been 2014. It was March of 2018. So it's not like this is back when you had prime Dwight Howard. This has been a very similar situation with a ball dominant point guard running lots of pick and roll, and now he's dealing with John Wall instead of Kemba. But a lot of the variables are very much the same here. So the ceiling really does exist. But in any case, 25% Dwight Howard, which is about what I expected. 17% Oladipo. So anyhow, Daddy liked Dwight Howard. There you go. And nobody likes Dwight Howard, but Daddy likes Dwight Howard. Joel Embiid, 16%. That's about right. D'Angelo Russell, 16%. Good on you people seeing that. Like, without LeVert, that has to work out at some point. That just is going to work out at some point. With shooting guard only on FanDuel and shooting guard eligible on DK. Big fan of that play. Favors, 13%. A little more than I would have expected, but still obviously cheap and has had some very nice games recently, so don't hate. DeMar Carroll, 12.6%. That's a little higher than I'd like to go there, but once you take Rondé out of there, he is cheap, and that's you have Dwight 32% and the 44 feeling indifferent, yeah. And again, while it is not always the case, a good way to figure out whether or not a play was under-owned is if you see his ownership going up as the prices ascend. Well, it's certainly not always true, and there's lots of money bags, expensive, rolling the wad out there, but terrible at DFS expensive guys. Generally, the higher ranks will have better ownership. So if you see Dwight Howard is 20% in the dollar and 25% in the $5 and 34% in the $12 and 48% in the $44, okay, then Dwight Howard was a pretty good play and went under-owned in low stakes. Kyrie Irving, 9%. Daddy likes that. Ben Simmons, 8.4%. Okay, like you were at the, like John Wall is under 8%. I would rather do the John Wall thing. Like that just seems, he was still more expensive. Both Wall and Beal, their prices picked up significantly there, but 8% at least. You're picking up an advantage if Simmons does reassert himself in this matchup. And what hope I have is he did manage to be really effective against Utah both games last year. So sure. John Wall 8%. I just mentioned Allen Crabbe 8%. Yeah, I get the idea. But, I'm still, Daddy doesn't like. Jared Allen, 7.4%, Daddy likes. Kawhi Leonard, 7%, Daddy likes that. Domantas Sabonis, 7%, Daddy likes that. Dinwiddie, 6 2/3%, Daddy likes that. The prices, come off being
surprising. No point chasing for Dinwiddie. I'm shocked.
Well, his prices come up. He was super bargain, $4,600 guy in good matchup, sans LeVert, so I'm not surprised there. 6.6% Hassan Whiteside, Daddy really likes. Richardson 6.4. Okay, Jimmy Butler 6%. Daddy likes that. Like it's 6%, $7,300. Okay, that's fine. Ibaka 6%. Great. Redick 5.7%. I like that. Hayward 5.3. That's fine. Again, 5,400. Really hard to imagine that hurts you too much. Will have a big game at some point. So he's going to get better. Jason Tatum 5%. Okay. Joe Harris 5%. Okay. Rodney Magruder 5%. Darren Collison, 5%, a little lower than I expected. Thought he'd catch up being a little more chalky with his recent play. So I'm a fan if you have some Darren Collison at 5%. Not the world's best matchup. I doubt you get much over 30 from him, but I'm a fan of that. Marquis, 4.5%. That seems about right. Lowry, 4.5%. Daddy likes, but again, I think they may be gentle with his minutes in this situation. Tyler Johnson, 4%. Has been productive. Sans Dwayne Wade. Even with Dragic back, he's looked good the last few games, so hard to hate that too much. The first Bogdanovich, Bojan, 4%. Gobert, 3.7. That feels pretty good. Rubio, 3.5. That feels just fine. Horford, 3.5. That feels fine. Ingles, 3.4. That feels pretty good. Donovan Mitchell, 3.4. Jaylen Brown, 3. Bradley Beal, 3. All right. I like Bradley Beal at 3. Like, I know he hasn't monstered it recently, but it's 3 in the spot with the Nets. Like, okay, I'm a fan of Beal at that price quite a bit. Wilson Chandler, 2.8. Jared Dudley, 2.7. Otto Porter, 2.6. Muscala, 2.4. Miles Turner, 2.4. I mean, it really says something where Miles Turner is still starting and he's $4,600 and gets 2% ownership.
I hate him so much. I just get out of Sabonis' way. I'm tired of it.
It's he has all the tools that can shoot from there. Like he has all the tools. Like
He's in great shape. He had the great shape thing, and he
oh,
actually showed everybody how great shape was.
yeah,
He still sucks.
he got jacked up, and I proved you wrong when you said I wouldn't flex on today's show. Just did it. Goran Dragic 2.3% I like. Crowder 2.2 is fine. Anunoby 2.2 is fine. Ed Davis 2% is fine. And 2% you just need Jared Allen's tummy ache returns. Takes care of that pretty quickly. Tyreek 1.7, yeah, at that price that's fine. Justice Winslow 1.6, okay. Wayne Ellington 1.4, Kelly Olynyk 1.3, Thad 1.3, Shabazz 1.2, Kojo 1.1, Fred VanVleet 1 flat, Marcus Morris 1%, Oubre 1%, Jonas Valanciunas 1%. I'm always gonna like $5,300 Jonas Valanciunas at 1%. Danny Green 1%. Austin Rivers 0.6. Don't think so. Terry Rozier 0.6. Guess if you were playing the blowout in that game, that's the way you go. Fultz 0.6, Smart 0.4, Baines 0.4, Mahinmi 0.2, Monroe 0.2. All right, that seems wrong. Satoransky 0.13, Furkan 0.1, Burks 0.9. Did anyone play themselves? There's a lot of reading coming up here if nobody played themselves. Delon Wright 0.07, Shamet 0.6, McConnell 0.6, McDermott 0.6, Rondé Hollis Jefferson 0.5. Congratulations, you played yourself.
There we go. Twism was waiting for that. He was waiting for somebody who played themselves, so you made Twism happy today.
Someone almost always does play themselves, so...
apparently we had Beal at 4% in our ownership. So the mystery person running the Osmo handle right now says in our chat. So
yeah, you always wonder who that is. I like logging onto that chat and saying offensive things about the other coaches because people are like, what the
I think a lot of people. So that makes me wonder if people are really like digging down to stats because the reason to not play Beal is that the Nets limit threes pretty heavily, and Beal's like game is pretty three heavy. Yeah. And I'm wondering if that's like the way to view it now that people are that advanced that they're digging down that deep on stats.
And I'm curious, what percentage of algorithms take that into account? Like whether or not like that's a fairly not I don't think most algorithms get to that stat level where they're actually breaking it down to micro types of scoring. But certainly I could see some having the 3-point line and that distinction in there. I don't know. I think it's just didn't massive ceiling game recently. Price had risen. Lots of other options out there and just more flavor of the day type stuff. So I would tend to think it's more emotional than informational analysis. But
there we go. And then our ownership rankings at Osmo.com account for emotion. They grind up a child every single day to turn out the proper emotion that a human would have.
Wow, that's terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to make a sacrifice somewhere.
Wow, that's like Mayan temple shit right there. We need to do a better job of pimping because they keep track. So all these shows give a promo code. Our promo code is live before lock, and many people sign up with the other codes. Now I, being defensive and obviously convinced of my own superiority, am always like, look, nobody uses our code because no one wants to sign up for a service at 6:40. They're busy. People watching the other shows, it's 2:00 in the afternoon. They're like, oh, all right, I've been thinking about signing up. I'm going to sign up now. So that's. But I just want to let you know, you and I are failing as salesmen.
Oh, are we? Oh, good. My plugs are so good. We got to show more up top. That's when you have a little time to do it.
All right, we got to run it out, or we got to get permission to run a 6 to 610 sale or something. We got to artificially inflate those numbers. So I think we're getting a raw deal there due to our, we're in the bad corner of the flea market, so to speak. But that's
yeah, I feel like I whore about as well. I mean, I whore as well as anybody on this site. I know that. People know my Uncle DFS in the premium Slack calls me out for my plugs being similar. I know my plugs, man. I'm a plug machine.
Yeah, I mean all the you, Josh, Lofty. I mean you guys are whorish.
We like to strut it around for Osmo. That's what we do.
You like to share it with all the boys. Somebody hurt you when you were young.
Is Osmo Hiddle talking shit? There's 483 people here. Yes, there's 483 people who use that promo code live before lock. 483 people remaining. 476.
We got to do more of this staying online till 7:15 and pimp it out then. So yeah. My pimping again is every day I give you A to F rankings on every what I consider playable guy in both cash and tournaments based on DraftKings pricing, and I load that out and put it out there, which also gives you a real quick and you can grab it and throw it right into Cruncher player pool. So if I listed someone I thought they would be playable if I played max lineups on Fantasy Cruncher if I played 150 lineups. So that way you don't even have to curate your own player pool. You just get those guys, and then you can look at the letters and use those to help you set your percentages, and poof, you're massive multi-entering.
Spencer Singleton, Chris sellout Spags. More like Chris pay his fucking salary Spags. That's what he's trying to do. Sell out, buy in. I'm buying in.
People
Spencer.
think we have these, luxurious lifestyles as touts that, we get off the air and we each open our caviar and wave over the Russian boo-boos to continue with the satisfaction. It's not quite that glamorous, and there are some responsibilities.
Yeah, we gotta help the business. It's a team effort here. We got to all row in the same direction.
And again, especially those of you enjoying our excellent analysis for free, should be sympathetic of that, because that's the model you're going for. I've done this basically 3.5, 4 years, and about half the time you had to pay to see me, and about half the time it was free. And the times you had to pay to see me, well, it worked better for you. The ownership bonuses were a little bit better, and there was no shilling. So it's sort of like YouTube Red or Pandora Premium or whatever. It's like, you want to get rid of these annoying ads only? So we got to find a way to do that for the. There you go.
Oh, and our guy Karl Marx wishing you a happy birthday. There you go. I got you, Karl.
Oh, thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Lone Wolf asking, Eddie, are we getting a birthday scope? I feel like you did a birthday scope yesterday, didn't you?
Did I? I think, yeah, I did. I did a wrap up yesterday. I felt like it would have been. I didn't want to, because God, it went terrible. I was all over Kevin Durant, who had literally like a 1% performance.
I know.
I
went to Kevin Durant because of you yesterday, and didn't turn out well.
Yeah,
it's
in
okay.
fairness,
I trust you and love you. So
yeah, in fairness, you probably went from Harden, so yeah, that cost you 10 points. But it's not like Harden was, incredibly.
Sure, no, he wasn't great either.
But people gave me a lot of shit for the Iguodala call. I will still say that Monster Bill, you can look at it and see that was pretty clearly the right play. He ended up being one of a quaternary of value plays costing around $4,000. You had him and Monty Morris and DeAndre Bembry and Juancho Hernan-Gomez were basically the 4 good 4K value plays, and you ended up with 35-40% ownership on Juancho, who went off and gave you 40 fantasy points. You ended up with 35% ownership on Bembry, who gave you 8 fantasy points and was hot garbage. You ended up with 55 ownership on Monty Morris, who gave you 15 and was hot garbage. And you ended up with 13% ownership on Andre Iguodala, who was also shit and gave you 13.5 or whatever. So, just based on the fact that the other 3 guys you were playing at that point had, 30, 40, 55% ownership, and you got this guy at 14, I'm still pretty positive windmilling into as much Iguodala as you could real quickly was the correct play. Didn't work out. I understand people being results oriented, but still, feel like that was well handled. But yeah, it didn't work out. Got to get him next.
No, I agree. Your guys calling Iguodala, and it's the timely response to it is why. I mean, that's why you come here, is like you're looking for game theory reasons for the most part. We do give out picks and stuff and give like our preferred plays, but the goal is you learn things and you learn how to approach slates and how to react to news and stuff. So I think your guys' answer on that. The one thing though is that made me question my view on it was that the Rockets were going to boat race them. And I wrote about that in the day earlier in the column, but I was like, fuck, like I trust Eddie.
You really thought the Rockets were going to boat race them. You had that play.
Yeah, I know. And I was right. Like, but the thing is, like, I still had enough Rockets where I don't think that didn't hit value. Like Tucker was terrible. So
Dwight Howard on pace for 100, by the way. He's got 4 points and 2 rebounds in 2 minutes.
Go, there you go. So
crush people. Elfrid Payton is going to start and play. So that seems pretty youthful there. Feel free to get yourself some of Elf off the shelf and back in there, especially on DK. Again, no games until 8 o'clock, so you have a while to make that move. But I like Elf pretty strongly in tournaments at this point. I'm curious what the ownership will get up to, but I'll think it'll be like 14, 15%. And I'd still want to get on top of that, I think.
Cool. All right. So that's it for us this week. Make sure you use that promo code live before lock. Eddie will be back tomorrow talking basketball. I'll be back tomorrow morning with Osmo and I believe Evan Silva, as long as Evan's functional and doesn't have any family emergencies or anything. Talking NFL contrarian picks.
I'm actually not going to be back. I'm going to.
Oh, you're not? Okay. You're good.
I'm going to come back on Sunday and do something depending on how. Like I haven't even looked at the Sunday slate, but it doesn't matter because FanDuel always runs it wrong. So Saturday night, once the slates are posted, I will figure out when on Sunday. But we've decided to add Sunday content, football into a bit more of its denouement, winding down a little bit. People are asking for more. By the way, Dwight Howard now 4 minutes and 12 fantasy points. He's holding on that pace for about 100 if he plays 32, 34 minutes. So go, Dwight.
No way that'll change. I see that pace
is. I think it's a lock of 100.
Like a rocket ship. It just goes up. Like Bitcoin.
Damn it, D'Lo, but D'Angelo Russell, doing okay there too. So you go, boy. What was I saying? Yeah, so
you got Sunday. You're on
we're going to
Sunday,
start
not
providing
tomorrow.
Sunday
So
content.
says
And
go after yourselves tomorrow.
Yeah, normally I believe I'm still going to try to do 6 days a week. So your average week for me will still be 4 weekdays and both weekend days. I think, and I'll be solo on one or both of those weekday shows. We're trying to figure that out. I am actually celebrating my birthday proper tomorrow, so I am taking a day tomorrow. But I'm going to be on Sunday at some point doing something. But tomorrow, I don't know if we have a specific pivot plan yet. I don't think we're going showless. I think someone else is going to cover me. But stay tuned to the awesome.
Oh, so good. So we'll have somebody pop in tomorrow, but watch my show more. My show's the best.
Yeah,
because not because of me at all, because of Alex and Evan Silva, but it's a fun show. So Saturday afternoon on the East Coast, tune in. If not, watch it on delay or whatever. But it's a very helpful show. On the contrary, something I'm proud of. So there you go. Any parting words for the folks?
No. Thanks for coming back after yesterday. Jesus, is Whiteside going off? Yeah, Whiteside has been Whiteside's been really good in this spot. My biggest issue with Whiteside is he wasn't named Dwight Howard, but after that he would have been someone I was pretty inclined to play in tournaments. So sure, I'm going to click over to that game and look at the box score. Whiteside, 8 points, 2 rebounds, 2 blocks in 6 minutes.
Down pace Whiteside. I've said this every time he's been in a down pace game. Play Whiteside if it's slow because he's good. Doesn't matter the matchup. It's just slow.
And you've just seen this again and again. He had one bad game against the Pacers. The earlier game this year had 11 and 20 and some stuff and was fine. The game before that, which was I think towards the end of last year, he had only 30 fantasy points and wasn't great. But like the 4 or 5 in a row before, and that was again the minutes thing because last year him and supposed to have their odd couple thing going on. But like the 4 games before that were like 17 and 23, 20 and 20, 21 and 18, 20 just combined 40-point steal and blocks like 4 or 5 times in a row against the Pacers. So if you think he was going to get the time, 7,900 on DK, my only issue with him was he was less of a complete ridiculous play than Dwight Howard at 57. So
true. Yeah, and that play's working out now. So, hey, we'll see how it goes. Check that promo code live before lock on Awesemo.com. There's a link in the YouTube channel. Late slate ownership projections just got updated. The mysterious benefactor behind the Awesemo handle is posting right now. So go check that out. It'll help you out if you want to win some money back if you're already getting killed on the early games. Go do that. And promo code live before lock on Awesemo.com. And that's it for us this week. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate every one of you. Throw the video a like, tune in, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you'll know whenever we go live. We have a ton of shows with smart guys doing content. We'll have somebody filling in tomorrow. Eddie will be back on Sunday. All the NFL stuff we're doing this weekend. So just hit the notification bell, hit the likes, support the community because we try to support you. So we'll see you guys again soon and have a lovely weekend. Good luck.
Oh shit.
I gotta end stream now for the love of God.
Okay, I'll end the stream. I was sitting here, I was ready to start talking.